At the family banquet, my stepbrother slapped me across the face, right in front of everyone, all to defend his oh-so-innocent, green tea girlfriend. So I repaid him with 3 hard slaps, leaving his face puffed up like a pig's head. His mother, Sarah, dramatically flung herself into my father's arms, sobbing and accusing me of being disrespectful and completely out of control. I glanced at my father's embarrassed expression and smiled coolly. As long as I say the word and kick you out of this house, my dad wouldn't even dare make a sound. Believe it or not. They thought charming my love-struck father was enough. But surprise, every cent in this household is under my control. That day happened to be my dad's side's monthly family gathering. I didn't even want to go, I had a major project deadline looming. But my dad kept pleading over the phone. It was the first time he'd officially introduced Sarah to the whole family. Skipping it would have made him look bad, so I carved out time to attend. What I didn't expect was for Sarah to not only show up, but to bring her son along too. Fine. I could tolerate that. After all, we were practically family now. But then they brought Ryan's girlfriend as well. And that woman? The definition of a green tea *TCH. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. With a syrupy voice, she chirped, "Sister. Sister." I forced a smile and played along, while cringing inside. But then she leaned in and said, "It's our first time meeting. Don't you have a little gift for your big sis?" Excuse me? The audacity. The thickness of that face should be studied. I gave an awkward laugh. "Didn't know you were coming, so I didn't bring anything." "No worries," she said, twirling her hair. "Your bag looks cute though. How about gifting it to your big sis? I won't even mind that it's second-hand." What? That bag was a brand new Hermes, fresh off the runway. And she had the gall to say that? My smile dropped. "We're not that close. If you want something, ask Ryan to buy it for you. Don't try to climb the ranks through me." She tried to serve me food like we were besties. I gently pushed her hand away. "And one more thing, I'm an only child. Don't go around calling me your sister like we're family." I barely touched her, but she made a scene, tipping the bowl in front of her with a dramatic crash. Then came the waterworks. Big, fat tears rolled down her cheeks as she cried like a tragic heroine. "Sister, I was just being nice and serving you food. If you didn't like it, you could have just said so. Why did you have to hit me?" What? Before I could even process her Oscar-worthy transformation, someone stormed up and smacked me hard across the face. I looked up, hand to cheek, it was Ryan. The entire room went dead silent. I stood up immediately, furious. "Who do you think you are, hitting me?" He was barely 5 feet 7 inches. I'm 5 feet 8 inches and wearing heels, towering over him by a head. He had to tilt his chin up to look at me, already at a disadvantage. Face red and puffing with fake righteousness, he said, "You hit Nicole, so I hit you." I let out a short laugh. I didn't have time to argue with clowns. I slapped him 3 times in a row until his face was a swollen mess. Only then did I feel the rage in my chest settle. Ryan clearly didn't expect me to hit back. Neither did anyone else. A whole minute passed before the room exploded with twin screams, one from Nicole, the other from my ever-so-dramatic stepmother, Sarah. Nicole rushed to Leo's side, caressing his bloated cheek and sobbing, "Does it hurt, baby?" Sarah, meanwhile, collapsed into my dad's arms like Ryan had just been stabbed in the heart. "Daniel. Look at Colleen. I've told you, you've spoiled her rotten. Now she's even hitting her own brother. Just look at poor Leo, his face is ruined." That made me laugh, out loud. Wrong move. Sarah pointed a trembling finger at me, face livid. "See? She's even laughing. All because you indulge her. You better not let her off easy this time." I glanced at my dad, who was clearly struggling to pick a side, and pointed to the red mark on my own cheek. He quickly looked away and gave Sarah a few awkward pats on the shoulder. All right. I told you all before we came, don't provoke her. Why didn't you listen?" Typical. Dad's a hopeless romantic. And that response? It was clearly leaning toward Leo's side. But Sarah didn't get the hint. Instead, she snapped, "Daniel, what's that supposed to mean? You're his father. Are you seriously afraid of your own daughter?" I raised a brow. "Sarah, if it weren't for the fact that you've looked after my dad these past 3 years, I would have kicked you and your precious son out of this house today." She shoved my dad away and pointed at me, shrieking, "And who the hell do you think you are? Your dad isn't dead yet. This house is still his." Then she turned to the rest of the family, looking pitiful. "Everyone, you've seen it for yourself. Colleen's so rude and arrogant, completely unlike Daniel. She's just like that dead mother of hers." That was the last straw. I slammed my hand on the table. The loud thud made everyone jump. First, I turned to my aunt sitting nearby. "Auntie, how's that construction project of Cousin's coming along?" She immediately plastered on a smile. "Doing great, really. Thanks to you, Colleen." Next, I looked at my second uncle. Uncle, did you manage to sell off all that leftover inventory from last month? He stood up, practically glowing. Your friend was amazing. One live stream, and everything sold out. Before I could even glance at my fourth aunt, she jumped in. Colleen, we're all on your side. The others nodded vigorously in agreement. Sarah looked stunned. She turned to my dad, wide-eyed. Aren't they all making money from your company? Why are they all siding with Colleen? I turned and gave her a sideways glance. Sarah, do you believe me now? I could kick you and your son out today, and my dad wouldn't dare say a word. She and Ryan responded in perfect unison, I don't believe you. Oh, you poor fools. You thought getting my dad wrapped around your little finger meant you had this whole family's wealth in the bag? What you don't know is, my dad married into my mom's family. He's a live-in son-in-law. If Mom hadn't passed away early, I wouldn't even share his last name. All the money in this house? It's from my maternal grandfather. All the assets? In my name. Dad only looks rich. Truth is, I'm the one giving him his damn allowance. You eat my food, spend my money, and now you dare lay a hand on me? Fine. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Just then, someone spoke up weakly, I believe her. Everyone turned toward the voice, only to see it was my dad. A slow, knowing smile crept onto my lips. At least the old man still had a shred of sense left and wasn't completely blinded by love. Sarah looked like she'd just been hit by a truck. Her legs wobbled and she gasped, Daniel, you. That's enough. Dad quickly glanced at my expression, clearly testing the waters. You're the ones who hit Colleen first. Watching the color drain from Ryan and Nicole's faces felt so satisfying. After that utterly chaotic ending, I thought the whole thing would blow over. After all, ever since Mom passed away, I'd been living with my grandparents full-time. Dad stayed alone in our big empty house for 10 years without ever bringing another woman home. Now he'd finally met someone he liked, someone who could take care of him. I didn't want that woman to be the reason what little father-daughter bond we had left completely vanished. Besides, it's not like we talk much anyway. I basically just throw money at them each month and call it a day. If there's one thing I never run out of, it's money. What I didn't expect was that Dad's little moment of support for me that day was just a setup for the next move. A few days later, he invited me over for dinner. Colleen, he said, Sarah and Ryan really realized their mistake after last time. They just want to apologize. Come over, have a meal with us, and let's all move on, alright? I was about to reject him. Like hell we were ever going to be one big happy family. But then he hit me with the guilt trip. Colleen, please. Do you really want your old man to spend his twilight years alone and miserable? Ugh. The emotional card. Classic. I sighed and reluctantly agreed. That night, the moment I stepped inside, Sarah greeted me in an apron with a sweet, overly bright smile. Colleen, come sit. Dinner's almost ready. Can't punch a smiling face, right? I gave a polite nod and chose a seat without fuss. Colleen, she said, last time was all my and Leo's fault. I've already scolded him, and I'll make sure he apologizes to you properly later. I stayed quiet and just gave a small nod. Not long after, Dad walked out of the study with Leo. The two of them looked real chummy, joking and laughing like nothing had ever happened. When he saw me, Leo's face lit up like a damn stage performer. Colleen. You're here. Last time, it was all my fault. I misunderstood everything. You were totally right to hit me. I glanced at him with a fake smile that didn't reach my eyes. Glad you understand. One sentence. That's all it took to leave him frozen and red-faced with embarrassment. Dad shot me a warning glare. I ignored it completely. What a joke. If a simple sorry could fix everything, why do we even need laws or cops? No one had ever laid a finger on me growing up. Sure, I hit him back threefold, but if he thought that was the end of it, he was dreaming. Sarah quickly stepped in to change the subject. Colleen, since you're finally back, let's eat. Don't want the food getting cold. Dinner was mostly silent. Other than Sarah sneakily winking at Dad every few minutes like she had facial tics, it wasn't too terrible. And I'll give her credit, her cooking was solid. No wonder she won over my dad's stomach first, and then the rest of him. After dinner, Dad asked me to join him in the study. Got something to discuss, he said. I noticed how giddy Sarah and Ryan looked as I stood up. My eyes narrowed. So this is what the whole dinner was really about. The moment we were in the study, Dad pretended to make some small talk about work and health, but quickly cut to the chase. Colleen, your stepbrother Ryan is getting married soon, and, well, Sarah's family isn't doing too great financially. I was thinking, maybe we could give him one of your mother's old apartments to use as a wedding home. I didn't even hesitate. Absolutely not. Most of my mom's assets had already been legally transferred to me. Only 2 properties and 1 car were still in my dad's name. One of them was the spacious apartment they'd lived in when they first got married, before I was even born. It was under both their names. The other was the villa we moved into later, and that one was under my dad's name and mine. Everything else? Mom had the foresight to change to my name when she was terminally ill. That old apartment may have been over 20 years old, but it was in the heart of the city, right next to the best schools. In recent years, its value had skyrocketed. And now my dad wanted to just give that place, worth over 10 million, to Ryan as a wedding gift? I was fine paying to feed and house them. But giving away that much money? Hell no. What, they can't get a mortgage like everyone else? You only have 2 properties to retire with, and you want to hand one out just like that? Be careful, or you'll end up broke and homeless. My dad's face turned red with embarrassment and anger. Why not? Sarah and I are married now. Leo's basically my son. Why shouldn't I give him a house? And it's not like I only have 2 homes, won't you be the one to support me in my old age anyway? Then his voice dropped. Colleen, what happened to you? Ever since your grandparents took you in, you've become so materialistic. I really regret letting them raise you. Wait, hold up. I frowned. You married Sarah Davis? I didn't even hear the rest of his whining. That bombshell was enough. Growing up, he always complained about how Mom's family measured everything in dollars and cents. And yet here he was, the one groveling for money and throwing tantrums when Mom's inheritance skipped him. Yes, he said, firm now. I've decided, Sarah's the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. I let out a cold laugh. You can spend your life with whoever you want. That's your business. But don't you dare use my mother's money to sweeten things for your little girlfriend. Dad was so mad he could barely breathe. And right then, Sarah Davis and Leo, who'd clearly been eavesdropping, finally burst through the door. Sarah threw herself at Dad, rubbing his chest like she was auditioning for a drama. Daniel, please calm down. Colleen doesn't mean it. It's understandable she's upset, but Nicole said if there's no house in the city, she absolutely won't marry Leo. And he's already 28. If it doesn't happen now, I'm scared it never will. She even squeezed out a dramatic tear. Ryan followed her lead. Dad. It's okay if I don't get married. Your health is what matters most. I watched their happy little trio from the sidelines. Leo's sweet dad was all it took to make my father puff up like an emperor on a throne. Completely high on love, my dad waved his hand with grand authority and announced, whether you agree or not doesn't matter. The apartment is mine. I'll give it to whomever I please. You have no right to interfere. He turned to Leo. We'll go handle the title transfer tomorrow. Sarah Davis threw her arms around him, sobbing with joy. Daniel, I knew you were the best. Ryan practically jumped in place with excitement. Thanks, Dad. Just as they were basking in their blissful little fantasy, I popped their bubble. Sorry to ruin the celebration, I said with a smile, but I don't think that transfer is happening tomorrow. Leo's face turned grim. He glared at me like he was seconds from lunging forward and throwing a punch. Sarah, still nestled against my dad's chest, tried the guilt trip again. Colleen, sweetie, I know you don't agree, but it's your dad's asset. He has every right to do what he wants with it. And I am his legal wife now, shouldn't at least half of it belong to me too? Using it as a wedding home for your brother isn't unreasonable, right? I shot her a sidelong glance. Sarah, since you clearly didn't study law, allow me to educate you. That apartment? Bought outright, no mortgage. It's your beloved's premarital asset. Even if you're legally married now, you don't get a penny of it. I leaned back in my chair with full composure. More importantly, that property is under my dad and my mom's names. My mom passed away a long time ago. No one had time to handle the inheritance back then, but have you ever heard of succession rights? Seeing the two of them look totally clueless, I crossed my legs and kept going, slow and steady like a professor in a courtroom. My mom left no official will. So, by law, the inheritance of that property is split among her immediate family, my dad, me, and my grandparents. If you want to transfer ownership, you'll need written consent from me, my grandpa, and my grandma, all stating we waive our inheritance rights. I flashed them my brightest smile. So yeah, that apartment? Not happening. Better give up now. I stood up, ignoring the burning hatred in Sarah and Leo's eyes, and walked over to my dad. Dad, both of your properties legally involve me. You're not touching either one. If Ryan needs a place to live after getting married, you can buy him one with your own savings. I won't stop you. But since you clearly have so much money saved up, I guess there's no need for me to keep sending you 30 grand a month in living expenses, huh? Let's cut that down to 3,000. I'm sure you'll all manage just fine. What? That's not enough to even eat. My dad practically choked from rage. Not enough for steak and seafood, no. But your recent checkup said your cholesterol's through the roof. It's time you start eating light anyway. And if you really want to splurge, use your own money. I'm not going to bankroll you just so you can turn around and use it on people who don't belong in this family. I know exactly how much he has saved, barely a few $100,000 at most. Years of reckless spending left him with nothing. He always assumed I'd keep paying his bills, his medical care, everything. Saving money was never in his plan. "Who are you calling not family?" Sarah shrieked, practically bouncing on the spot. I turned to her with an icy stare. "Well, if the shoe fits, feel free to lace it up." I didn't bother wasting another breath. I walked past them and straight out of the house. But just as I stepped past the villa gates, I felt it, a cold, piercing gaze like a blade digging into my back. I whipped around. No one. I shook my head and left. "Whoever it is, they'd better think twice before trying anything. Touch me, and I'll break your damn hand." 2 peaceful months went by, until one morning, my assistant burst into my office in a panic. "President, something's wrong." I frowned. "What is it?" She handed me a tablet, her face pale. There it was, #1 trending on the hot search, heiress of Blue Group abandons her sick father. My first reaction, shut it down. Do not let this reach the chairman. My grandfather had passed the company to me years ago and retired with my grandmother to a quiet countryside estate. He's old now, and I won't let him get stressed out by this circus. His health is too fragile for this crap. I tapped into the Post and began scrolling. It was a marketing accounts-long article, exposing Blue Group's sky-high valuation and accusing me of getting control of the company by sucking up to my maternal grandparents, and cutting ties with my birth father in the process. It claimed my father was now hospitalized, unable to afford his medical bills. Attached was a dramatic little video. My dad lay in a hospital bed looking like he was half a breath from death. A doctor stood nearby, asking Sarah to pay. Sarah, full soap opera mode, was crying her guts out, begging for a delay. She was 1 second away from getting on her knees. The internet exploded with outrage. They called me a heartless rich witch, said I was an ungrateful daughter, said Blue Group would crash and burn under someone like me. No wonder the products are getting more expensive, they're squeezing the life out of regular folks. And on it went. I laughed coldly and tossed the tablet onto my desk. "So, Ryan wants a PR war? Don't ask me how I know it was him. It's not like there was anyone else who'd benefit from this mess besides him and Sarah. Their little tricks are child's play to me. In the business world, I've weathered far worse storms than a bit of tabloid trash. They think public opinion can pressure me into submission? Please. The public's opinion is the easiest thing in the world to steer. Just throw enough money at it and boom, scandal disappears overnight. Haven't they seen how celebrities get shielded by capital all the time? But here's the thing, I'm not even going to waste a dime on them. While they're out there twisting facts with vague, emotional narratives, I'll hit back with nothing but hard truth. Because in the end, most people can tell right from wrong. Justice has its own voice. I told my assistant to postpone all my meetings. Then I went to my grandparents' home and dug up an old videotape from over a decade ago. Our tech team digitized and edited it. My first strike was ready. Thanks to all the money Ryan had thrown at marketing accounts, the topic was still hot. So when I dropped my video, it shot straight to the top of the hot search list, no paid boost necessary. It was raw footage from over 10 years ago. Back then, my dad still had a full head of hair. The scene? My mom's funeral. He was supposed to be receiving guests. Instead, he stumbled and drunk off his ass, reeking of alcohol. Everyone froze in shock. He stormed inside, grabbed my mom's framed portrait, and smashed it on the ground. I was a little girl, screaming and crying from the corner. Grandpa had tried to stop him, but my dad shoved him to the ground. Grandma got so worked up she had a heart attack on the spot. The entire funeral descended into chaos. And amid all the commotion, all you could hear was his drunken shouting, "Why? Why? I worked like a dog for your Blue for years, why don't I get a share? That bitch. That greedy, dead bitch." At the end of the video, I had my tech team add a simple caption, "Tell me, could you forgive a man who threw a drunken tantrum at his wife's funeral just to demand her money?" Public opinion flipped in an instant. People began to sympathize. How could anyone grow up with a father like that? Comment sections were full of people dragging the original marketing account for spreading lies without fact-checking first. But I didn't let my guard down. A single strike is never enough, especially with people like them. Sure enough, that very night, a new video exploded online. This time, it starred Sarah herself, sobbing on camera like she was auditioning for a tragic film. She tearfully blamed herself for dragging my father down. She said he'd stayed loyal to my mother for 10 long years, and only after meeting her did he find a second chance at happiness. She claimed she was originally hired just as a caretaker. Never expected anything. Never planned to fall in love. But 2 lonely hearts in old age had slowly grown close. She poured her heart into taking care of him, only to become an eyesore in my life. She knew I looked down on her. She knew I didn't want them together. But what they had was real love. Isn't everyone, no matter their age, entitled to love? The video ended with her begging me, "Colleen, I'll leave your father if that's what you want. But once I'm gone, could you please be kind enough to save his life?" That flipped public opinion again, just a little. Some people thought my dad had already atoned for his past by staying loyal to my mom for a decade. Maybe he was just drunk, they said. Funny. Haven't they heard? A drunk man's words are a sober man's truth. Others appealed to morality, but he's your father. You're so rich, can't you just help him out? Still, a few remained clear-headed. That caretaker clearly just wanted his money. I calmly picked up the phone and called my assistant. Proceed with the next step. Yes, President. Everyone was waiting. My second strike dropped, and within minutes, it had the viral tag on hot search. It opened with a slideshow, high-end luxury purchase records. Handbags. Jewelry. Designer shoes. Then came video footage, one of Sarah hauling bags of luxury items out of a mall, the other of her and Leo's girlfriend Nicole shopping gleefully at a boutique. Finally, the video displayed my monthly bank transfers to my dad, along with the spending records from the credit card I gave him. At the end, another message. "Sarah, you do realize you are the reason my relationship with my father deteriorated further, right? You never once told me what illness he had, or what kind of money was needed. But I think we can all agree, if you truly wanted to save his life, selling off that $1 million worth of luxury goods might have been a good place to start." The internet exploded. The comment section lit up with fury, this time aimed at Sarah. Someone even pointed out that in her teary video, she was wearing a Cartier watch worth over $15,000. Others unearthed footage of Sarah and Ryan apartment hunting together. And that was all it took. The floodgates opened. People began digging into Sarah and Leo's past like mad. Random, coincidental encounters started going viral. Videos, stories, receipts, everywhere. It wasn't long before Sarah and her darling son became the internet's favorite targets. They disappeared from public view after that. But just because they were quiet didn't mean I was done. This mother-son duo needed to be permanently removed from my life. 2 days later, my third strike was ready. The day Sarah and Ryan tried to smear me through those marketing accounts, I had already launched an investigation into my father's condition. And yes, the trigger really was the drastic cut in their monthly allowance. I used to give my dad $30,000 a month, plus a supplementary card with a $50,000 limit. More than enough for the three of them to live lavishly. But once they got greedy for my mom's estate, I shut off the secondary card and slashed the monthly amount to $3,000. To people used to living large, that was pure torture. Ryan cracked first. Nicole, clearly not the quiet, demure type, was probably only with him because he could spend money on her. But with Leo's day job paying barely $4,000 a month, once I cut them off, he could no longer keep up with Nicole's appetite for luxury. She nagged him. Threatened to leave. And eventually, his frustration bubbled over. He made a move. First, he pushed Sarah. They assumed my dad, the so-called man of the house, held the financial reins. They thought if they could control him, they controlled the money. What they didn't know was that dad was just a guest in our home. All the money? In my hands. No matter how much they sweet-talked him, if I wasn't giving out money, they got nothing. So they hatched a new plan, make my father sick enough to guilt-trip me into restoring the cash flow. They knew he had high blood pressure. That he couldn't eat salty food, drink strong tea, or consume anything that caused bloating, like sweet potatoes or beans. So Sarah started cooking with those exact ingredients. Little by little, she increased the salt content. Not enough to raise suspicion. Just enough that his taste buds adapted. The salty food made him thirsty. So she brewed strong tea to quench his thirst. Over time, his blood pressure shot up, and eventually, he collapsed. And just like that, they had their victim story. Normally, it would be hard to prove. But Leo, bless his idiotic soul, texted every detail to Nicole. He wanted to reassure her. But Nicole is the kind of girl who will sell anyone out for the right price. All I had to do was give the signal, and my team had her entire chat history that same night. After confirming with the hospital that my father's life wasn't actually in danger, I decided to play along. Let them act. But now? It was time to end the show. Thanks to the social media circus, several major outlets had requested interviews. I picked the most reputable one, and on the day of the interview, brought the entire media crew to the hospital where my dad was staying. "Miss," the host asked as we approached the hospital, "are you here to visit your father?" I smiled gracefully at the camera. Of course. He's my father. If he's sick, I'll fulfill my responsibilities as a daughter. As long as this entire mess isn't based on someone else's scheme. With that, we marched into the hospital ward like an army. Just as I'd expected, Dad lay alone in his room, hooked to a ventilator. The stroke from his high blood pressure had left him paralyzed. I glanced around the empty room, frowning. Huh? No one here? I thought Sarah claimed to be his devoted soulmate. And yet here he is, completely alone. I walked to his bedside and looked down at him. His eyes were wide open, staring at me. I looked back at my father in silence. He glared at me for a moment, then shut his eyes, trembling with anger. Lying helpless in bed, he had no idea what had really been going on. All he knew was whatever Sarah and Ryan fed him while playing nurse and dutiful son, probably that I was heartless, had abandoned him, and refused to see him in his time of need. But soon, he would know the truth. I smiled faintly and turned away. In front of the camera, I found his attending physician and gently inquired about my father's diagnosis. And right on cue, as the doctor explained that his stroke was caused by a high-sodium diet, gas-producing foods, and excessive strong tea consumption, Sarah and Ryan finally burst into the room. "That's not true!" Sarah shrieked, lunging toward me. My bodyguard instinctively stepped in and shoved her back with one arm. She hit the ground with a thud. Instantly, she let out a wailing cry. "Is there no justice left in this world? Assaulting someone in broad daylight? Look at you, so cruel and vicious. No wonder your father ended up like this. You'll be the death of him." Ryan knelt beside her, his eyes burning with hatred as he glared at me. "You never cared whether he lived or died. And now you show up here, pretending to care? What is this, some kind of PR stunt?" I tilted my head, lips curled. "Oh? If I'm acting, what have you two been doing all along? I assume you saw the response video I posted earlier. I had my lawyer tally the charges. My supplementary card covered a total of $1.6 million. Let's say $600,000 of that was payment for your mother's 3 years of caregiving to my dad. That leaves $1 million. You have 3 days to return it to my account." Sarah stood up shakily. "Why should we? I'm legally married to your father. That money was rightfully mine. He gave it to me willingly." I clapped slowly. "Still sticking to the script, huh?" I took a tablet from my assistant and tapped play. 3 years living in our villa and you didn't notice the place has surveillance." The screen showed Ryan sneaking into my father's study, rummaging through drawers, and stealing the supplementary credit card. "Does that look like a willing gift to you?" I narrowed my eyes. "And have you forgotten what I said before? You and my dad only got married 3 months ago. That card? That money? All premarital assets. None of it belongs to you." I handed the tablet back to my assistant and looked at Leo's pale, frozen face. "If you don't want your precious son behind bars, I suggest you sell off those luxury items and return the money. You've got 3 days. If not, well..." Sarah collapsed on the ground, unable to even cry anymore. Not that they knew it, but this was just my appetizer. I walked toward my father's hospital room. Behind me, Ryan supported Sarah as they trailed after me, still seething. I could feel their hatred, like knives in my back, but to me, they were just 2 clowns performing their final act. I still had one last truth to reveal, mostly for my dad's sake. Because he needed to wake up from his love-drunk delusion once and for all. The moment he saw Sarah and Leo, he perked up slightly, eyes fluttering, murmuring nonsense through his oxygen mask. Sarah rushed forward, crying again, and threw herself onto him. "Daniel, I'm here. I'm here." I rolled my eyes. I could barely stand to watch. They kept their tear-soaked performance going for what felt like forever. When I'd finally had enough, I clapped my hands once. Everyone turned to me. "Hold on," I said calmly. "Let's not get to the sob story just yet. We haven't even started the main event." I signaled to my bodyguard. He adjusted the bed so my father could sit more upright. Meanwhile, my assistant pulled a projector from her bag, quickly connected it, and began casting images across the blank hospital wall. Chat logs. Dozens of them. The camera crew instinctively turned toward the wall and began filming. Leo's face turned ghost white. He stumbled back 2 steps and leaned against the wall for support. "These screenshots were provided by your lovely daughter-in-law," I said evenly. "They clearly detail how you and your son conspired to destroy my father's health. And that's not all. I also have video evidence of what meals were prepared for him at home, and testimony from the doctor confirming that his condition was entirely caused by his diet. You realize what this is, don't you?" I turned directly to the camera. "It's attempted murder. That's a criminal offense." I stared into my father's wide eyes. "If they had gone just a bit further, you wouldn't be lying here paralyzed. You'd be dead." His gaze trembled as he looked at the projected messages. Finally, he turned, rage burning in his eyes, and stared at Sarah. She flinched at his look and scrambled to defend herself. No, Daniel, I didn't mean to. That's all fake, it's all Colleen's doing. She made it up to turn you against me. I'm just a simple woman from the countryside. I don't know what foods make you sick." I didn't know. My dad looked uncertain for a moment. Maybe she was right. Maybe she was too uneducated to know about food interactions. But The chat logs clearly showed Ryan explaining every detail to Nicole. I stepped forward, watching Sarah blubber, then turned back to my dad. Dad, just so you remember, her son majored in food biochemistry. Same as you. My father's eyes widened, horror dawning across his face. I smiled faintly. I bet you never imagined that after all these years, it would be food that paralyzed you, just like you once did to Mom. I paid the hospital a generous amount to ensure he got the best care. But the doctors were clear, there would be no recovery. For the rest of his life, he would lie there, motionless, unable to move. I forced out 2 tears for the camera. The broadcast was a hit. Once it aired, people started paying serious attention to the topic of dietary interactions. Discussions went viral. And Blue Group's stock price? It soared. More and more people started to understand the importance of food and health. Hopefully, tragedies like this would become fewer and farther between. As for Sarah and Leo? They liquidated all their assets to repay the $1 million I demanded. And even then, they still ended up in custody. Not because I pressed charges. But because Sarah's previous employer, another family she had worked for as a housekeeper, took the evidence I provided and found a chillingly similar case of poisoning. Now, their charges of attempted murder are likely to stick. Justice will be served. As for me, I finally had a quiet day to myself. I went alone to visit my mother's grave. She rested in a serene, green haven, just like how she was in life, kind, luminous, and full of warmth. I told her everything. The breeze touched my cheek, tender and calm, like her hand once did. Mom, I finally avenged you. Epilogue. I was 12 when my parents started fighting over money all the time. My dad said my mom's family looked down on him, that she micromanaged even the tiniest bit of spending. But then, one day, something changed. Drastically. He suddenly became incredibly attentive to her, showering her with concern. He even started making her all sorts of nutritious soups himself. Mom began to smile more. The whole house felt warm again. Watching them grow close again made me feel happy, too. But the good days didn't last long. Mom started getting weaker. At first, we thought she was just overworked. None of us paid it much mind. Then, one day, she just collapsed. We rushed her to the hospital. The diagnosis? Multiple organ failure. Terminal. No cure. No one could believe it. She was only 40. How could her body break down like that? The doctors ran every test imaginable, but still couldn't find a cause. As her body deteriorated, so did her spirit. Then one day, a strange light returned to her eyes, a final flicker of energy. She asked everyone to leave the room, except for me. I stood there, stunned, barely able to process what she'd just said. "Sweetheart," she whispered, her voice faint with strain, "there's something wrong with your father." She started coughing, and I rushed to hold her up. "I've already transferred most of my assets to your name," she said, grasping my hand. "But I'm still scared. After I'm gone, you must move in with your grandparents immediately. Promise me." "Mom, maybe you're just imagining things," I said gently, trying to calm her. But she shook her head firmly. For the longest time, I couldn't figure out what was happening to me. Then one day, I read a news story. Someone had died after eating persimmons and crab together. That's when I realized, all those nutritious soups your father kept making for me? They were poison. She gave a bitter, broken laugh. And I thought, that was his way of showing love. "Why didn't you go to the police?" She squeezed my hand tighter. "There's no proof. It would be useless." Tears welled in my eyes as she looked at me one last time. "Baby, I can't protect you anymore. You have to protect yourself. Just remember, money turns people into monsters." And with that, she closed her eyes forever. I didn't want to believe it. So I stayed. I couldn't accept that the man I'd always seen as calm, gentle, and well-spoken was capable of something so horrifying. But then, at my mother's funeral, he lost all composure. Screaming about inheritance like a madman. That was the moment everything changed. That was when I began to believe she'd been telling the truth. Years later, after poring over countless medical journals and forensic reports, I finally understood just how deadly certain food combinations could be, far more than most people realized. That was when I believed her completely. And that was when I made a vow, I would get revenge. So when it came time to hire a caretaker for my father, and I learned that Sarah's son had the exact same educational background in food science and biochemistry that my father once had, I knew what I had to do. I did my homework. As I suspected, they had a history. They'd poisoned the last man Sarah worked for. So I brought them in. I played the long game. Calculated every move. And in the end, I won. Now, he'll spend the rest of his life bedridden, haunted by the woman he destroyed. Everyone will pay the price for what they've done.